Good morning, America. This is Richard G. Medlock, coming to you live from a great part of the United States. And also, we're going to talk today about what's going on and how we got here. Let's go back to the beginning of this country, Adam Smith. He wrote Wealth of Nations. The founding fathers looked at his work, which was based on limited government and free economic situation. Free economy. Go do what you want to do. And based on that, the United States became very wealthy in a short period of time. But starting in the 1900s, there were people in America that didn't like that. They didn't think it worked as well as it was supposed to. Well, it did work, but they wanted to start putting restrictions on it, wanted the government to get more involved. So they took Adam Smith out of the colleges and universities and started teaching other things. Now, this came from what they were seeing in Europe. They were seeing in Europe that a group of people in power, bankers and politicians and business people, were coming together, getting all the power, getting all the wealth, and becoming what was called the bourgeois of Europe. Came out of France, and the Rothschilds and other people. Well, the Americans, some Americans started thinking, we want to do that. We want to have more power. We want to have more control. So what they started doing was taking control. One of the things they did was develop the income tax in 1913. And also in 1913, they created the Federal Reserve, which was a national bank that our founding fathers didn't want anything to do with. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So they created that, started getting control. Now, a lot of people are educated to the fact that in 1929, we had this big economic crash, Great Depression. Well, we did. But what caused it? Was it bad economics? Was it a bad stock market? Was it bad government? It was more bad government than the others. It's bad government. It was overreach. Herbert Hoover decided that he wanted to call in all bank loans at one time. Well, some of the banks couldn't meet those demands. They didn't have the reserves, i.e. the crash of 1921. Now, that's the simple history of it. You can go back and research this. No big deal. Go back and research it. Don't use any really modern books, anything written since 1990. Go back before that. They've revised everything. So the crash happens, which precipitated the government, passing more regulations, more rules, and then Franklin Delano Roosevelt coming up with a welfare program to bring people under the control of government. Well, what do you mean under the control of government? Yeah, at that, you're living off the government. They can tell you what to do, and they can control you. And then down the road, they figured, hey, if we can do it to all these individuals and families, why can't we do it to the states? Let's get the states on welfare. Whoa, time out, Richard. What do you mean the states are on welfare? The states are on federal government assistance. Schools, roads, and a whole bunch of healthcare, Medicaid. I mean, you start thinking about how much federal money comes into your state to control things in your state, it'll blow your mind. So now they get the states on welfare. thereby, if the states don't do what the federal government wants them to do, oh, cut off your money. Whoops. Let's go back to 2007 housing crash. We had this humongous economic crash. Well, what led up to that crash? The government decided and forced lenders to give subprime loans to people. They didn't require income statement. They didn't require tax return. They didn't require a credit check. They just needed a name and an address that you're buying. Oh, and we will loan you the down payment. Wow, what a deal. Interest on it was higher, but these people didn't care. Hey, I got a house. I can do what I want to with it now. And then, see, these mortgage lenders, they go to the bank, they go to the Federal Reserve, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they get these pools of money. And then they buy it back. They put them in these big groups of loans and buy it back. For instance, let's say Wells Fargo loans out $100 million in loans this month. Well, that's their pool of money. So then Fannie and Freddie buy it back, the FHA buys it back, and they have a new pool of $100 million to go along. All right, so what caused the crash that shouldn't have caused the crash when Obama and McCain and Bush and all these guys came in there and says, the banks are going to fail. By Monday, you're not going to be able to go to the ATM and get any money. There was one rule they could change, and we'd move on. The rule was this. If you have 50,000 loans out there and 5 are bad, then you have to write all 50,000 loans as bad loans. You've got to put it over here in the bad debt column instead of just 5 loans. So they used that, and I promise you, there were politicians and bankers and everybody else screaming, just change the stupid rule. They didn't change it. What they did is they did the TARP thing and supposed to bail out all this stuff and all this and crash. But let's go back to those mortgage things. So they were pooling good mortgages and bad mortgages together and selling them not only in the United States, but overseas. Overseas was buying them like crazy in Europe. Then all of a sudden, the crash happens. And those bonds are worthless. Governments owned a bunch of them. A bunch of ETFs owned a whole bunch of them. One company, actually, it was a good friend of Obama, he put like $6 billion of investors' money into one fund, hoping it would turn around, and it busted. He lost billions of dollars, was never held accountable. So these are the things that the government does to control what we're doing. They use it through the Federal Reserve, legislation, and executive order, and judges' rulings to get control of everything. Instead of government just protecting the people, protecting us from fraudsters, and let the people do what they do best. But what happened is the government became the fraudsters. And they built up within the government this class of bourgeois, are people that controlled everything. That's my message for today. Thank you.